Good morning. Welcome to part 2 of a shaker stool for the workshop. Today we're going to learn to draw the leg of the shaker stool. And I'm going to begin by showing you the image that's in the John Kassay book. And the curious thing about this image, by the way, I'm struggling a little bit here with my voice. Yesterday I went to my grandson's hockey game and lost my voice in the cheering. My grandson won 4-3, and he scored 1 goal and 1 assist, so I'm a pretty proud grandfather today. But let's get back to the video. Right here is the most curious thing about this drawing. You notice that the angle, the splay here, is shown as 80 degrees. That 80 degrees is a little bit misleading in that what it really represents is how the leg will appear when the splay angle is projected to a vertical plane. The actual angle is about 76 degrees, which you'll discover in this tutorial. But let's just see how we can use that 80 degrees to draw the splayed leg. What I'm going to do is bring in here, take this out, and bring in my finished drawing. This is the completed drawing that we will get to as we go through this tutorial. This leg appears as it's the finished leg, and you'll notice it's chopped off at the top and bottom with the appropriate compound angle so that it can sit on the floor and not protrude through the seat. But when you actually draw this, we're going to draw it longer than its final dimension. And the reason is you'll see in a moment, but we'll chop it off later. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a bunch of dimensions here that are all referenced to where the axis of this leg goes through the floor, right at the floor. And everything will be referenced from that datum. You don't have to remember these dimensions. I'll provide them as we go along, but just realize that there's a number of these dimensions. We got some curves we have to put in here. On the lathe, we're going to put some grooves here. And what those grooves are actually used for, what the shakers did was that marked where they're going to drill the holes for the rungs that held the legs together. So there's a bunch of curves here that we need to draw. The primary dimensions are that the widest part of this leg is 1.5 inches. At both ends, it's 1 1/8 inches. Of course, we're going to be interested not in the diameters, but the radius. So we're going to divide these by 2. And then these dimensions are going to tell us where to place these curves. So let's get started. In order to draw the splayed leg, we have to use a little trick, which I'm going to do right now. And you'll see why in a moment. Let me go to the front view. Move this down. I'm going to draw a rectangle. That rectangle is going to be 12.5 by 30. Where did 12.5 come from? And 30. 12.5 represents the distance between the legs, axis to axis, or center to center. The 30 is just a dimension that's higher than the stool. It's not important except that it be higher than the stool. If I go to the ISO view now, I've got a plane. I'm going to make that a group. One of the very few times you'll see me use the group. All right, now I'm going to copy that with the rotate tool. So I bring the rotate tool in, hit the control key for the copy mode, hover over this point right here. Now I want the shift key to hold the blue orientation so it doesn't switch on me. I'll go to this point, click, come out, click there, and then rotate 90 degrees so that I copy that plane or that group at the moment and rotate it 90 degrees. I'll type 90 degrees into the VCB and hit enter. Now what I want to do is I want to, while it's still selected, I want to go to the front here, hit the shift key to hold that orientation, and then rotate this 10 degrees to the left. So I click here, and by the way, I'm going to rotate it on that point right there. So it's leaning to the left 10 degrees. And obviously that looks like an 80-degree splay from the front when I view it from the front. Now I'm going to do the same thing to this one. And in order to do it, I've got to look at a side view, and I got to get the right side view here, or the correct side view, and that's the correct side view. I use the rotate tool, hold it out here so I got the red orientation, hold the shift key down to keep the red orientation, click on this point. Once I do that, I can leave the shift key up, and I can look in the ISO view to make sure I'm on the right point. And I am. So now I'm going to come up here and click, and then come back 10 degrees. What that means is if I look at this thing from this angle, it looks like it's splayed 80 degrees, or it's leaning 80 degrees from the horizontal. However, the line that I'm really interested in is neither of these, but this intersection of the two planes. So what I'm going to do, take the tape measure tool, click here, and here. That will give me the axis of the leg. If I were to check the angle that that line makes to the horizontal, or I should say the angle that this intersection makes to the horizontal, it's 76 degrees, and I'll show you that later. Okay, now, once I've done that, I'm going to bring in, let's see if I have it here. Yes, the layers. I'm going to add a layer called planes. And I'm going to put one of these planes on the planes layer for the moment. The one that I want to put on the planes layer is this one. And I will check the invisible box, or uncheck the visible box. All right, I still have my axis here. That's important. That's the thing I'm going to draw along. All right, so the next thing I want to do, I'm going to edit this. And I'm just going to bring this edge out along the red axis. Just a few inches. And the reason I'm doing that is just to give myself more area to work on here when I draw this leg. All right, now I'll go to the front view. And we're going to bring the drawing back in here. I'm going to draw a bunch of construction lines. And this is the same axis that I just showed you in the drawing. This point here represents where it goes through the floor. Notice that this leg has already been chopped with a complex or compound angle for its splaying and sitting flat on the floor. The reference point is going to be where this axis goes through the floor. And I'm going to draw a bunch of lines. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines reference to this point. You don't have to remember these dimensions. As I said, I'll supply them as we go along. All right. First thing I want to do is right where it goes through the floor, I want to create a perpendicular line here. So I'm going to zoom in and take my... Now if I hold this tool out here, it's green. If I hold it over that plane, it turns black. That indicates to me that the protractor tool is in the same plane as that off-axis plane. So I'm going to hit the Shift key to hold that orientation. Come down here, click, come up along this line till it says on line, and come down 90 degrees, and click. Now that's a line that's 90 degrees to this line, and now I can use this intersection as my reference datum. I'm going to bring a line parallel to this up. Let's see. I'm going to bring it up 3 and 5/32. So I'll use my tape measure tool. Come up. I have to make sure I'm on this line. If it doesn't say on the line, then I'm not satisfied. I'm going to come up here where I get that intersection. And I want to see that intersection right there. So I'm going to say 3 and 5/32. When you're dealing with surfaces that are off axis like this, you got to make sure that what you're drawing is actually on the surface. And that's very important. So for each one of these, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to make sure that I get that intersection. All right, so 0.75 for this one. I'll type 0.75, it'll snap back. I'm going to come down here, grab this one again. Come up here, 0.75. And let's see, how many do I need? I need 1, 2, 3. I need another one. 0.75. Now I should get intersection marks here. And I have to make sure I get those. If I don't, I did something wrong. Okay, I got them. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do, I've got these lines. I'll soon put some lines in for these transitions. Next thing I'm going to do is take these diameters, divide them by 2, and create lines that represent that. Well, half of 1 1/2 is 3/4, half of 1 1/8 is 9/16, so I'll put those in. I'll start with the 3/4. Now again, I want an intersection like that to make sure I'm on that plane. So I'll type 0.75. And I'll do it again for 9/16. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to draw a curve. I'll show you the curve I want to draw. Whoops. I want to draw this curve right there. And so I'll take the arc tool. Now in SketchUp 2014, there are actually 3 arc tools. I'm going to use the traditional one here, where it says draw arcs from point to point with bulge. So I'll choose that tool. Come in here, click here, click here. I'm going to zoom in. And what I want to do is I want to come close to this line right there. where it says online, on the dotted line, I'll click, and I got myself a nice little curve there. I have to extend this line so it goes through the floor. This red axis represents the floor. So I'm going to extend that line till it goes through the floor. I'll use the line tool, come down here, wait till it says online, and click. Now I also want to create a perpendicular line, or one that's parallel to this one, at that point, so I can now draw a line like this that represents the bottom of what this leg is going to be before it's cut off. Okay, so I've got that much done. Next thing I want to draw these little nicks that I'm going to put in this leg on the lathe. These nicks are designed to show me where I'm going to drill these holes in the workshop. I'm going to exaggerate them more than I would actually nick them on the lathe, but I'm going to exaggerate them so they show up. So I'm going to draw that now. There's one that's going to go right there and one right there. So I'll use the Protractor tool and start here. Come out here and come up 45 degrees. I'll do the same thing here. Come out here and down 45 degrees. And I'll draw my nick in. Hit escape to get out of that tool. I can get rid of this guy, get rid of this guy, and do the same thing here. I'll draw this nick in, hit escape. Now I can take the line tool and add these lines. And add this line. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. And for the moment, oh, I can get rid of this one too. And I guess I can get rid of this one. All right, we're moving along here. All right, now let me bring this back in. Now what I want to do is I want to create a line 2 inches up and another one 11 1/8 to represent these transitions. 2 inches, 11 1/8, and 3/8. Let me do that. 2 inches. I'm going to go up here and make sure I get that intersection point. 11 1/8. I want that intersection point right there. And check it. It's 11 1/8. And now 3/8. Okay. So now the thing I want to draw in here is 3 curves. One that goes from here to here, one that goes from here to here, and then this one. So we'll draw all 3 of those now. Let me zoom in a little bit. Again, I'll use the traditional arc tool. And I'll come down. I'm going to zoom in here so I can see what I'm doing right there. That gives me a nice transition there. Now I've got a long one to do. It wants to transition the other way. And now notice that tangent at vertex. Notice the line turned blue. That says that the curve I'm drawing is now tangent to the one I just finished drawing. So that's nice. I'm gonna click that. That makes sure that I don't have any weird transitions there. Lastly, I'm going to come way up here. Click here. Click there, and notice I've already got the transition that's tangent. And there we go. Whoops. There we go. All right, so now I got those curves in there. Now, if we look at this, when this whole thing is completed, from the place where it goes through the floor, I'm sorry, no, the longest point of it, the two longest points of this thing are going to be, in other words, this is the cutlass dimension. We'll never actually use it in real life because we'll use something longer than this. But the cutlass dimension is 21 and 9/32. I want to make sure that I'm quite a bit longer than that. So I'm just going to check this with the tape measure tool. So from here, over to here, that's 24 inches. So that's a lot longer. I'm going to make this, make it 23 inches, but I want to make sure that I'm on an intersection here. I'll make it 24 inches. Now I can draw this from here to here and down to here. Hit escape. One last thing I want to draw is from there down to here. And by the way, when I do that, I should have gotten a face. Let's just see if I did. It looks like I did. If I select that face, I should see the whole thing is a face. And notice it is. That whole thing is indeed a face. All right, so far so good. Now I'm going to take this plane and put it on the planes layer. Bring my entity info in here. Put it on the planes layer. I'm going to get rid of all but my axis. Get rid of all these. I'm going to leave my axis. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a circle down here at the origin. And I don't care what the diameter is as long as it's reasonably good size right there. That's good. I am temporarily going to choose that axis line plus all of the faces and edges with my leg. And I'm going to make it a group. And let's just leave it like that for the moment. Notice I have some kind of a line up there. I didn't notice that. I'll get rid of that later. There's a little line up there. I'm not sure what that was all about. Okay. So this is a group, including the axis line. If I select it, I should be selecting that whole thing plus the axis line, and I am. You can see the axis line is blue. So what I want to do now is create one more group. Before I do, I'm going to put another axis line through this circle. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to click on the blue axis, move it out, and then move it back till it says 0 inches. And what that means is I've just put a construction line along the blue axis. I'm going to select this circle, its perimeter, its face, and this axis. Or not the axis, but the construction line. And make it a group. Now you can't see that here. But I did. I made it a group. Okay, now what I'm going to do is move that group, picking it up at the origin. I'm going to move it to this point right there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to arrange this circle. I want to tilt this circle in 2 dimensions. The rotate tool won't really do that for me directly. I have to help it. And the way I'm going to help it is I'm going to create a surface. 3 points creates a surface, so I'll use my line tool and I'll start at this point right here. Go to this point. Now let me go up a little further. Come over here until I'm on that line right there, and then back to here. Notice that created a surface. I'm going to use that surface to tilt this axis to align with this axis. And when I do, this circle, since it's part of the group, is going to do the same thing. So I'll choose this. I'll choose the rotate tool. I'm going to hold the rotate tool over that surface and click the shift key. Come down to this point. Once I click on that point, I can let the shift key up. I'm going to come up here because this is the axis that I want to rotate. Click there and then move it over to this point. What that did was it shifted that circle in 2 dimensions. It tilted it in 2 dimensions. So that its axis, the one that's perpendicular to its face, is the same axis of the leg. Now I can explode things here. I can explode this guy. And I can explode this guy. Oh, before I explode that guy, let me get rid of that. I no longer need it. I also don't need this. I only want the perimeter of the circle. And now I can explode this. And what I want to do is I'll choose this circle and then the follow me tool. Choose this with the follow me tool, and look at that. I have a leg. Nice leg. Isn't that a nice leg? Whoa. Whoa. Oh, that's awful. That's much too much. What did I do? I made a mistake there. Those nicks are much too large. I'm not sure exactly what I did there. Let me go back and fix that. I think I can do that. I'm not sure what I did wrong there. I have a feeling I just went too deep with things. So That's 3/4. Should have been 1/16. What did I do wrong? That's 1/16. I think I must have gone to the wrong line. Okay. Let's take a line parallel to this line. And bring it here. And another one here. I take my protractor tool, hold it over this, push the shift key down, come out here, over to 45, do it again, hold the shift key down, come up here, .45, and to give myself, need a line here. All right, so you can see where my nick is supposed to be. It's supposed to be right there. And I'll erase these two lines. And you know what I can do? I could take that line, copy them to that point, add this line, all right, we're almost done here. All right, let's see if we can do a better job this time. So I'll select this. There we go. I'm having a little trouble here with my selection. All right. Select that, the Follow Me tool, and there we go. Oh, much nicer leg. Much nicer leg. And immediately what I'm going to do is we're going to click on this 3 times and say make it a component, call it a leg. Let me spell leg correctly. That's interesting. I had the shift key on. Okay. Now the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this circle. No longer need it. And I'm going to correct the axis on this. Notice the bounding box is much too large. So I'm going to correct that. And the way I do that is I right click on it with the select tool and say change axis. And I'm going to click where it enters, the axis enters here. And I'm going to use the X-ray tool so I can see where it exits at the bottom. Should be somewhere around here. There we go. And now I've got to come up with a green axis. I'll just click on this line right here. And there we go. Now we got a bounding box that represents the shape of that leg. The last thing I have to do I'll get rid of my X-ray tool. The last thing I have to do is create 3 more legs. And the way I'm going to do that is, remember, the legs are 12.5 inches apart, or 6.5 inches between them. So I'm going to create 2 lines here. One parallel to the green axis and along the red axis, 6.25 inches, which is 1/2 of 12.5. I'm going to do the same thing here. Parallel to the red axis and along the green axis, 6.25 inches. That's going to give me a point here. With that point, I'm going to rotate both my axis and the leg in the copy mode. So I'll choose the rotate tool and the control key. Click on this center point here, come out here, go back 90 degrees, type 90 degrees into the VCB. That's one leg copied. Now I have to hit the control key again to make another copy. And again, click here, here, and on this line, or type 90 degrees. I prefer typing 90 degrees. Hit control key one more time. Click here, here, and along this axis, type 90 degrees. Something happened that time that didn't feel right. I'm going to say undo. I'm going to select this and do that again. Click here. Control key first. Here. Here. Type 90 degrees, enter. Okay. Now I'm going to get rid of that line and this line. And I want to look at this from the front on. This is the acid test. If I did this correctly, these 2 front legs should be hiding the back legs. So I'm going to zoom in here real close. And notice I can't see the back legs. Same here. I can't see the back legs. So let me go to a side view and see if I get the same result. Great. Now, when I look at this angle, it should look like 80 degrees, and it does. But if I actually measure this angle, which we will do the next time, you'll see it's 76 degrees. But for now, well, let me see. I can probably do that now. Let's put these on the legs layer. I'm going to create another layer here. And put these on the legs layer. Two at a time. And I'll check the invisible for the legs layers, though I know that they got there. Okay, now what I still have is my axes. Should have 4 of them. Where's the other one? I think I've got them, but I'm not sure. Hard to tell. Well, let's put all these on the axes layer. I'm going to create an axes layer. And I'll put all my construction lines on it. It says 6 guides. I'm not sure where the 6 came from, but we'll put them on the axes layer. And get rid of axis. And I'm going to bring the legs back in to make sure that one of the... Okay, I got the legs. By the way, if I look at this from the top view, you get precisely what we think we should get. All right, get rid of the legs, and let's bring the planes back in. Look at it from the front. What I'm going to do now is create a vertical line. It goes through that point right there. And I'm going to create a line that goes through here and get rid of the planes. Now what I'm interested in is, what is that angle? So I'll hold this over there, that surface. And notice it's 14 degrees. 14 from 90 is 76. So we're not really leaning 80 degrees. We have a compound lean of 76 degrees. And that's the angle that we're really splaying at. Okay, we're going to come back next week in part 3. And I'm not sure what we're going to do in part 3, but you'll find out later if you come back. Until then, have a good week. We'll see you. Bye.